Hi, this is John, your host of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, my guest, again, I'm on a streak. I don't want to put pressure on you guys, but I'm wrapping up the year here, and I've had nothing but great guests. So if you blow it, and you guys,
we'll try to
ruin it. Okay,
on your streak, yeah.
So anyway, I have Jenny Lee, who's a medium, and also Frosty. And not only Jenny is a medium, but she is also a co-host with Frosty on the Witching Hour. Is that correct? Yes. So they have a podcast, which I love, always having friends or my little coven, as I was like to talk to Frosty and Jenny, saying, you know, the more paranormal gets out there, the more we dispel some of the disbelief behind people kind of like saying, I don't want to talk about it, or, you know, you're going to say I'm crazy, I saw a ghost or an alien. And right, that's part of the reason at least I do it. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having us on.
Yes.
Happy to be here.
Great. And again, I'm lucky to have you both here. I always love it. So one of the things, Jenny, I'll start with you. I'm just kind of, you were nice enough to share your biography so I wouldn't have to go out in the web and search, which sometimes I have to do and try to find stuff on people and like, what are we going to talk about?
As fellow podcast hosts, we like to also have the information up front.
Yeah. So you, Jenny, have also said, because I've had number of different mediums on, as you guys have known, if you go through my catalog, and I know you guys have too. Now, you said you've had in your bio, said a profound connection to the spiritual realm. When did that start? At a young age? Recently? When did that start?
I always like to point out that I have had a connection with the spiritual my whole life, but for some reason I just never put all the pieces together until I was much older. It was about 2018 when I realized that I was a medium, that all these experiences that I'd had my whole life weren't just normal. First of all, they weren't really normal for most people, and then they meant something else. It meant that I did have a deeper connection with the spirit world, or however you want to perceive that, and that I could communicate with it.
Yeah. So one of the fun things I like that you said in your bio here was you communicate with spirits, as well as extraterrestrials. But when I saw it, it said ET, and I said, "Did you tell ET to phone home?"
We haven't had that happen yet.
Oh,
we've had a lot of other ETs phone us though.
Pick up your phone, and so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So let's start with spirits first. But before I get into that, Frosty, I'll get to you soon, I promise. Let me ask you this. Spirits, meaning you because I've talked to a number of mediums, and one of the things they said was, it really varies. That's why I love having mediums on. Some have said they've been not literally driving their car and like a spirit appears, but something to that effect where they're like doing something, making dinner, whatever, and then a voice comes in their head and starts communicating with them. Is that something that happens to you, or is it totally different?
I don't usually see anything with my eyes, but I sense it. I do hear in my thoughts in my mind that are not my thoughts. I have a sense of knowing. So it's like all these different, we call them the clairs and the woo-woo world. It's all the clairs, clairsentience, clairaudience, all those things. And it's really just your normal senses, but they're extrasensory. So yes, I do. I have been in the car and felt and knew that there was someone there. I have been cooking or washing dishes, same thing. Like, yes, those things definitely happen to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, because if that happened to me, I'd be honest, I'd freak out. You know, if I was like, you know, la 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 la, just cooking my dinner, you know, and suddenly a voice, John, I need to talk to you. I'd be like, obviously it's not
Yeah.
that simple. It's not that easy. One of the things I want to ask you is, how did you go about when you're, I mean, do you talk to clients at all? I guess, let me ask you that. Do you have any clients? Okay. So then how do you prepare for that to ensure you have a clear connection between the spirit, whatever you want to say, and the person, so you're not giving misinformation, right? Like, how do you prepare for that?
I think every medium or spiritual worker has different uh, rituals or routines that they go about doing before they get started. So for me, I set my space using some sage and some Palo Santo. I light a candle and incense. And then I do a grounding exercise where I ground myself to the earth. And then I go through all of my chakras, which are these energy centers in your body. And then I am open. It's like turning on the open sign. You know, I had the closed sign, the open sign wasn't turned on yet. So then I turn on the open sign. And the biggest thing about any spiritual work is intention. So I'm setting an intention that I have this person here, this living person here that wants to connect with something on the other side. So I set my intention. I'm connecting my energy with them. And we would like for somebody, whoever, to come through and hopefully give them important information at that time.
Yeah. So my next question would be, let's say a spirit is reluctant to communicate during a reading.
Yep.
Do you have any strategies you use to encourage that spirit to share information?
That has happened a lot.
Okay.
And I think it happens for different reasons. I think sometimes the connection just isn't there, and you have to kind of dive a little deeper and feel into it a little bit more. And sometimes it actually is that the person you're trying to talk to is reluctant. I think I've had a few times where the person, when they were alive, didn't believe in any of this stuff. No, they were really religious or they were atheist or whatever. So they didn't believe in it when they were alive. So then here's this woman, this woo-woo woman who wants to come and talk to them. And they're like, well, I don't know about this. And I think for me, I'm able to get information in a lot of different ways. So they don't necessarily have to speak to me to tell me the information. I can sense it, I can know it, I can feel it. So once I get started with that, usually it kind of eases up for most of the time.
Okay. That's really interesting to me. Okay. So you do have a name, Frosty. It's Jeremy Shepard. You put it in the bio. You're out. Yeah. Sorry, buddy.
He wants to start actually using his name.
Well, it's been an interesting thing because when we started doing the witching hours, we were both streaming I was streaming on Twitch. And so it kind of all started over on that platform. And on that platform, no one uses their real name. Everyone's got a handle over there. So when we started doing the show, we exclusively did it on Twitch, and it wasn't even a podcast. It was just a Twitch stream. So I used my handle over there as China the Frost. And so that's what we used there. And then we started putting it out as a podcast, and it's kind of grown and expanded, and there's more we want to do with it. And then, so now it's kind of been like, okay, well, maybe I need to start including other than my handle, but
I love it. And you are a U.S. Army veteran. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have some cousins who are in the Army and Marines, and God bless that you guys are out there willing to protect a guy like me and other people. Again, thank you so much. Now I love this. I am a huge history guy, huge history, and you have an MA from George Mason. I love that. I wanted to be a history teacher, Frosty, but to be honest with you, I'd be the teacher no one would get. Like, I would come in just dressed like George Washington and be like, and today I'm George, and people would be like, the parents would come in and be like, hey man, like, stop. Like, I'd come in dressed like Attila the Hun, be like, all right, and I'd be fired.
Those are the things that kids remember, though.
Yeah, they are.
I know. That's what I'm saying. When my kids would come to me, they're growing up now and out of school, but when my kids would come to me and they'd be like, Dad, I have to do a report on the Revolutionary War. I'd be like, oh, this is awesome. Let's start with these great stories. Because everybody's used to the same boring stuff. And, as you know, we're finding history every day, right?
Yes.
And as well as there's history in the paranormal, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, so talk a little bit about why you love history, because obviously you had to love history to do that. But what really inspires you to learn more about history?
Well, to be honest with you, I think the love for my paranormal and the love for history kind of coincide because it's all about the story
Hmm.
and it's all about intrigue. And so one of the reasons I fell in love with history for me was because I love the story time. A lot of people hate lectures, they hate sitting
Yeah.
through, that I just enjoyed sitting there listening to story time and kind of hearing about these things that I didn't know about.
Hmm.
And kind of understanding how things causation, like one thing leading into another, and then also kind of wondering about what we call the what ifs of history. Like, man, what if this wouldn't have happened? What if this would have happened that way? Which, can be kind of fun in sci-fi and stuff like that, like the
Yeah.
ideas of what happens if somebody else wins that battle or someone else wins that war, or this person doesn't win the election, or so on and so forth. So I think for me, whatever it is in my brain that triggers my interest in the paranormal and the supernatural is kind of probably the same thing that made me interested in history and in fantasy and things like that. It's kind of like this wanting to understand the things maybe we don't know everything about. And that's another thing about history that you were just talking about, is this idea that we think we know history, but history changes every day.
Changes everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I love history too, not to get on a sidetrack here, because this is a paranormal podcast tonight, we'll get into that, is that you can learn from history. Like I explained to my kids, I said, you go to a restaurant, right? And you sit at that restaurant and the food's not so good. Well, that's history, right? Because you went to the restaurant, the service was terrible, the food was terrible. Now you have history with that restaurant that you can say, I'm not going back. But
Mhm.
think about, I always tell my kids, on a broader scale, thinking about the Revolutionary War, for example, the British and, the people in the United States, however you want to, Federalists, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. But those people are like, wait a minute, I don't like you telling us what to do.
We're not eating at your restaurant anymore,
Yeah,
Brit.
yeah, we're not eating at your restaurant anymore, right? We're not going to eat out of there. And, you're taxing us too. Like, what's going on? That's it. We're through. We're making our own restaurant, and it's going to be a lot better. Trust me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's really super simplified. However, it's true, right? And it changes every day, right? It changes your relationships, your work, eating at a restaurant, and the paranormal. So I just that's why I find it interesting.
And as far as ghosts go, I mean, history is so important there.
Absolutely.
Having somebody that knows how to research the history of a location and the families that live there and the events that took place, like it's all tied together. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, the
Correct.
paranormal and the supernatural world are all connected to history.
They're all connected. Correct. Yeah.
All the stuff, I don't know about you, but like we've always kind of been interested in some of the things that come from Graham Hancock and like, like lost civilizations, lost history, and then even just getting into like ancient humans and like what is the origin of human beings, but then even like we were at a paranormal investigation last year, and one of our friends, Alex Matsuo, gave a lecture on women in the paranormal field, and this going all the way back to the early
women in the paranormal.
Yeah, so it's like going all the way back into the early 20th century and talking about the role that women played in paranormal investigations. It's everywhere. If anything exists, it has a history. Yeah,
I love it. So let's get in. I'm going to take you back in your time machine. Speaking of history, what a segue, people. The time machine. We're in your time machine. Okay. Tell me about your first paranormal experience. Jenny, why don't you start?
All right. First paranormal experience. I have one that I don't remember, but my parents tell me about it. That I used to see a woman in my room at night when I was little. But my dad also would see the same woman in his room at night when he was little. There's been a big, we've been trying to figure out who this person is, and it's a big, complicated thing. But I think one of the first ones that I really remember was when I was a teenager. I was at home by myself, and I knew no one was home, and I knew nobody was coming home at that time because my mom was at work, my brothers were at school, my dad was at work, and I hear the front door open. and I hear someone run into the kitchen, and then they run back out, and the door shuts again. And I'm like frozen, like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And then I hear the front door open again, and someone comes running forward, but then they turn like they're coming down the hallway, and my bedroom door was open. So if they would have come all the way, I would have seen them. But they turned right back around, and they went back out the door and shut the door again. And I have no explanation of what happened. I don't know. I never to this day have not a clue what that was about, but it was pretty scary.
So, have you ever had an experience during one of your sessions that really scared you?
Now that I know so much about energy and spirits, and I've had so many interactions, not really. And there'll even be times when I'll be touched, or there'll be noises around me, or something weird happens, and it doesn't really faze me anymore. Yeah.
This always blows my mind. If you were to wake up in the middle of the night and someone's standing next to your bed,
I would still be scared.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I'm working, when I know that I'm interacting with spirits, but if it came unexpectedly like that, and I actually saw it with my eyes, I would definitely be freaked out.
Yeah, because it's a little bit different. I feel like communication with spirits and then having like a full apparition.
Mm-hmm.
Those are kind of on different levels. So yeah, I think that would be definitely more startling.
Yeah.
I always say residual hauntings are more frightening to me than intelligent hauntings.
Why is that?
And I feel residual haunting, it's like, let's say there's a little boy that appears at the end of your bed at 3:10 every morning. Just appears there. And then disappears. And you try researching, you try everything. It just won't go away. It just happens. Why intelligent haunting, if someone is like slamming your cupboards at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, downstairs, and then turning on and off the water in your bathroom, there's more I think you can do to be like, okay, I can bring somebody in like you, Jenny, or somebody else, investigators. There's a number of people I could reach out to. Very lucky, being that I've had so many great guests on, who could come to my house and say, okay, this is what's happened, and kind of go through it. But being that just a little boy appears in my bed, doesn't talk, doesn't communicate, I have no clue why that little boy at that time is showing up and why there, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's
even more unknown.
Yeah.
But I think that residual energy can be dispersed as well. Maybe easier than something that's intelligent.
Okay.
Because for me, it's all energy. So if there's this energy that's replaying itself, I believe that it's possible that energy could be cleansed and released and, sent back to source, or however you want to think about it. Where if you have something intelligent that doesn't want to move on, then there's nothing really you can do about it. Like, it's their choice. They still have free will, even though they're not living anymore. So they can continue to bang the cabinets and have the water going off. And,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Frosty. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing, but I would say, I don't know. I think for me, like, if I heard someone run up the steps like one time every evening, and it was kind of like this residual energy, I think that would be easier for me to live with, kind of knowing it was on this repetitive cycle, or something like residual hauntings tend to be, as opposed to something that was intelligent, where it was like, anything could happen at any given time. I think it would be a little bit more for me specifically, but I could definitely see how those, and they can be so different. So it's interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Frosty, let's talk about your first experience. You said you had one at a young age, a paranormal experience.
I'm trying to go back over my paranormal experiences. Really, I had most of my paranormal experiences as I got older. I got interested in the paranormal early on, but I didn't have my own personal experiences until I was like probably late teenage years, going into my early 20s is when I probably really started having my first paranormal experiences. My first paranormal, where we lived in a place where we had some issues with hauntings. I also had a UFO experience.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting, and it's still something I talk about on the podcast a lot. People who listen, our wonderful team, weird people who listen, are probably tired because they've heard me explain it for
They're going to fast forward through this part.
We got a whole new audience. We have a whole new audience.
So it's like one of those things where I still have no clue what it was today because it doesn't fit into any other witness reports I've heard before. But I was in Richmond, Virginia. I worked as an overnight security guard, so I worked late hours into the night. And it was kind of my job to go around into the van and go to the different buildings for the company that I was working for. And you would go through the buildings, and you had this little electronic wand, and you would hit these buttons on certain floors. And then they could print it out. This is before kind of the internet age, but they could print out the report and be like, okay, this person was here at this time, so they did their check. Yeah. Well, I was training a new guy that night, and we were going out when you got to, it was probably like it wasn't a big building, but it was in the city. It was probably about 4 or 5 stories tall. And I got up to the top floor, and you were supposed to open up the door to the roof. And then on the other side of the door, on the outside, there was a button that you had to hit. Now, what you were supposed to do is you were supposed to go out on the roof, make sure everything was good up there, and then come back in the door and complete your patrol or whatever. But typically what I would do is, and what I was taught to do, by the guys before me, was just kick the door open and reach your hand around, hit the button, and keep on going, because you had to do it in a certain amount of time. And it was actually, was kind of like you kind of had to hustle to get through your patrol in time. So, but this night, since I was training a new guy, I wanted to teach him how to do the right thing. So I was like, here we go. We open up this door and we walk out onto the roof. And you make sure everything is okay up here. And I was just kind of walking them around by the top of the roof. And I looked up into the sky and I saw this it looked like a blue flame, and it was in the shape of a boomerang. And it was just kind of hanging in the sky over Richmond. So there's all kinds of city lights and, stuff like that. And it sat there, and I stared at it, and I looked at him, and I could see that he was staring at it. And then when I looked back, it just shut off, like, just zip, kind of saw a trail and it's gone. And, I think the easiest explanation for it was that it was some kind of meteorite or something, but it doesn't explain why it hung still in the sky for as long as it did. Like, it was stationary, and then it took off. But I didn't see like a saucer. I didn't see lights. I didn't see, anything like that. So I've always been kind of curious, because I don't necessarily know that it was any kind of craft or anything like that. But it definitely wasn't anything that I could rationalize. So me and the guy that I'm training, we look at each other, we give each other a knowing look. I think it's kind of interesting now, looking back on it, that we didn't talk about it. We just kind of like gave each other like the weird eye kind of knowing glance, and then we walked back in and we finished doing the patrol. Yeah.
And that's why I think there are thousands of stories out there like that people just don't, like they hand it down, like a Christmas fruitcake. They just hand it down from generation to generation. And that's interesting to me because, again, what I was saying earlier, podcasts like ours, you have guests on, skeptics on, and people are like, I don't know. That people can go, oh man, I don't feel so bad. Maybe I'll bring it up, right?
Yeah.
And talk through that. And I think that's a good thing, because it makes you feel better. You've been holding that in for how long? I mean, that's bad.
And it's one of those things where it's like, you don't know what it was. And like, I didn't talk about it a whole lot because it wasn't a saucer. If it would have been a big triangle craft or a big saucer, I'd be like, hey, especially me, I'd be like, I finally saw one. I saw a UFO, but instead I saw something and I was like, I have no clue what in the hell this thing is. So I didn't want to be like, well, I saw this, because I don't know what I saw. Could it have been, where a meteorite was kind of hovering in the sky because of some kind of spatial, mind trick? Yeah, it could have been something like that. So I don't want to be like, I know what I saw.
Right, exactly. So, Jenny, let's stay on that topic. You're talking, you said extraterrestrials. What does that mean when you say you have communication with them?
Well, to back up just a little bit, when I was learning how to be a medium, I just thought I was going to be an evidential medium, which is talking to people's grandmas and stuff. And
then nothing wrong with that. Right?
No, I love talking to grandmas. They're awesome. But as I started doing more and more work, more and more types of things started coming through that weren't people's grandmas. So I also learned how to do trance mediumship, which is basically allowing your consciousness to move away from your body and allowing another consciousness energy to come forward, and your energies blend together. And then it's also referred to as channeling. So you're channeling the information from something else. And a couple of famous people that have done that is like the Abraham Hicks with the law of attraction information. A lot of people know about that. And the more recent one is Bashar. Daniel, I think his name is Daniel Anka, does Bashar. But I have all kinds of weird things come through. And one of the things that started coming through was ET energies. And there's been all kinds of different types from goodness knows where. They don't really tell us a whole lot of information about where they're from. But so far, they've all been very loving, very kind, wanting to be helpful, wanting to give us as much information as they can that's beneficial for us. And I think that is very different, a different side of the whole alien ET experience than that people have been told and experienced over the course of what we know, especially with ET, alien abduction type of experiences. So it's been fascinating.
So let me play. I want both your input on this. Here's two sides of it, because I've interviewed a number of people who kind of view it a little differently. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Some have been abducted and have said, you're way off.
And for them, it's absolutely terrifying. Yes.
Correct. And I've interviewed people who have said, they're basically saying, you're destroying your planet. We're here to help. How do we help?
Yeah.
Now, my question is, which side do you really believe? The big question is, what do aliens want and what's their agenda? Right?
Well, I think just like us, everyone's probably a little different. And also, I think that you never want to invalidate somebody's experience. If somebody had an absolutely horrific, terrifying experience that has traumatized them for life, you never want to say that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's the way that they experienced it. But on the other side of that, were they experiencing it that way because they were so terrified and they didn't see that there was a different side to it, or there was a different, because this is the thing. And I feel like this goes across the whole gamut of paranormal, ET, spirit. There's only so much information that we're allowed to know. And there's this huge, wide, probably bigger than we could ever imagine amount of information that is out of our grasp. So, is there information about their experience that they didn't know at the time, or that they still aren't privy to? That it wasn't something that was supposed to be terrifying, but that's the way they experienced it,
Yeah. Frosty, how about you? What do you think?
I think it's really interesting. I have my kind of own ideas that I can get into in a second on it, but bringing up, I think one of the things to look at for this is the case of Travis Walton. I imagine you're familiar with with that case.
Yep.
And Travis Walton, and if your listeners aren't sure, he was in the movie Fire in the Sky was kind of based over his abduction, and for him it was a really terrifying experience. When you hear him talk about his abduction in the early years, it was very much like a lot of other abduction experiences where they didn't see that it was a pleasant experience, that it was it was terrifying, and they had issues dealing with it for years after it happened. But in some of the more recent interviews I've heard with him, he's talked about how he thinks he had it wrong. And that it was just like a fight or flight kind of thing that kicked in for him. And actually they might have been trying to heal some stuff that had been going on with him. And so now he looks back at it as a positive experience.
Yeah.
So
that's really, yeah.
So like Jenny said, I mean, I'm not anyone to judge, anyone's personal experiences, because I haven't, at least that I know of, have not been abducted.
Yeah.
You know,
Never know.
So it's one of those
That's
things
right.
where
Got any missing time
I
from
haven't had that
blue flame?
experience. Yeah. So
check your watch.
My own personal, but in my own personal opinion on it, and this is just from someone who sits and thinks about it. I don't know. I don't know that if there are extraterrestrials that could travel all the way across, time and space, faster than the speed of light, or create wormholes, or whatever it's going to take to get to Earth. I would imagine that they would have had to evolve past a lot of the negative things that we do as human beings. I mean, just imagine what it would take for our species to be able to traverse the stars. I don't know if we'd be having, little conflicts between countries and stuff anymore. I don't know if we would be out to, scavenge natural resources, because we probably will be able to, to just create what we need from atoms.
Correct.
So the way that I look at it is like, why, and also, and this, a guest that we had on recently, Michael Stratt, we were talking about early, and I'm like going all the way back to Roswell. Well, in our show, he ended up talking about all these cases of UFO recoveries. All of them, the whole show that we talked about, came before Roswell. So, if ET is here, then ET has probably been here for a very long time. And if they were going to come here and take over the planet, I think it would have happened already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that too. And you know what the interesting thing is, and I think this is more funny, is we have been told there are UFOs, and the collective response was, nah, I'm going back to playing Candy Crush.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, here, they're right here. Dude, all right. It's like you come in, it's like a monster movie, right? I come running into the bar. Hey, everybody, there's a monster out there. He's eating your heads, and he's going to come in and eat your heads in here. Everybody just goes, yeah.
I think it's really
strange.
I talk about that all the time because there was a study done about, one of the reasons supposedly why we have never gotten, information releases, because we as a human society would have fractured and fallen apart. So that's why the government didn't want information put in out. And I think there's a lot of us, the people who are listening, your audience who's listening to the show tonight, those of us who are talking about it, I think could handle disclosure. But I think if you look at the majority of the world's population, I don't still know if the human species is really ready for disclosure, because there's lots of implications that come with that, like energy. There's lots of implications that come with that, dealing with religion.
Right.
And so I don't know if some of our institutions can still kind of keep going. So I think some kind of disclosure from the government could still, even though I hate saying this because I'm 100% in favor of complete disclosure, I don't know that we as a society can handle it.
No. Yeah. Jenny, let me ask you this. Have you had an experience with maybe a client, or maybe just with yourself, where something has come through that was a little more surprising regarding extraterrestrials, that you went, oh, okay.
We've had some very unusual types of ETs that have come through. Okay. One, I just put out a little YouTube video about it from June of 2023, I think. They seemed like they were made of rock.
Wow.
If you've ever seen the movie, The Neverending Story of the Rock Biter.
Yes.
It was kind of like that. Like, I could feel and sense the way that their body was formed and shaped. And it was much, much bigger than myself. And it was kind of scaly, but also heavy, and felt like it was some sort of rock material. And the weirdest one that we had was not humanoid at all. And the way that I experienced it, and the only way that I can explain it, is that it was like a slime mold, which is just a mold that looks like a little pile of slime.
Yeah.
But it was an intelligent, conscious being that had really wonderful information to share with us. But it was so strange because as humans, we only like to think of other humanoid things as being intelligent. Yeah.
Yes. And that's where science fiction movies kind of throw people for a loop. where you're not really dealing with science fiction, like science, I should say. It's more fiction. It's like, going on a planet and everybody can breathe air.
Yeah.
Going on a planet and everybody
Everybody's
speaks
humanoid.
English.
Yeah.
Everybody's humanoid, but they got like a thing in the middle of their head, and that's it.
Because it's people in costumes. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they have just a long beard. Nothing against you, Frosty. Oh, they just have a long, like, no. You might, it's a slime creature. And that's the way they communicate. And everyone's, you're right. The collective would be like, I would be like, huh? I'd be like that. But everyone else would be like, like, I'd be like, whoa. He's trying to show us how we can get, infinite energy and stop pollution. Stop it. Right. Now, let me ask you this. One thing we don't hear about anymore, or at least maybe they do a great job of covering it up, is Men in Black. I was looking at your episodes. Do you believe there still are Men in Black out there? Or do you think something's changed? And what do you think has changed?
Because I listen to a lot of podcasts too. And it's like a lot of these experiences with Men in Black seem to be from longer ago. How many recent Men in Black experiences have there been? I have heard a couple of more recent ones of people saying that there was some strange things happening. But it doesn't seem like it used to be. Like that 50s Men in Black guy, two guys come into your home and they sit down and they talk to you. Like that doesn't seem to be happening anymore, as far as I know. I mean, yeah.
Frosty, do you have anything to add on that? Why you think that might not happen?
Well, I think it comes down to the different versions of the Men in Black. Because I think one of the things I always thought about the Men in Black is like the movie Men in Black, the government, like the guys, wearing, who were like, maybe FBI or something. And they're coming and telling everybody that they didn't see anything. I think that still exists to a certain degree. But, we were listening to a podcast or something recently where they were talking about like the more weird Men in Black, where like they're almost more like the black-eyed children. Like there was a thing kind of made between that they don't seem very human, and they don't really quite seem to understand our culture, and they don't really quite understand like how we interact with each other, and they seem very odd. And
there's no there's no physical interactions between them. Between you and them, or them and anything else.
Yeah, they seem out of place, and like a lot of times, like they don't have like eyebrows, and it's just like so. Like, I guess it comes down to what that is, because I don't have any personal experience with that.
Yeah, right.
I definitely believe there's the guys in the black suits who are saying, "Hey, you didn't see that." I think that's still around, but I'm curious about the other. I'm curious about the other kind of Men in Black, because we did start having a lot of the black-eyed children sightings kind of in the 2000s. And those also seem to have kind of waned.
Yes. And that's interesting, because I just did a little, I have a little more spookier podcast, just short and sweet to the point, called Dairyland Frights, where I did just black-eyed children. And when I was researching it, there was just a lot of, I thought I saw something, maybe that was it, but the one going back, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but that's from like the teaser. This guy was basically paying his cable bill, and this black-eyed children came up right up to his car and was, just, hey, can you take me to this movie? Can I get in your car?
Yeah. I need a drink of water.
I need a drink of water. Yeah. And there's other stories too, where there was a story about a couple who invited the children in, and they act very strangely, and then they gave them very nice to them, and the woman gave them water and food, and then later, like I believe, and I'm just paraphrasing here, so if you guys can go in blanks, or some of my audience can, is I believe the woman died of cancer, and then the other gentleman died of something. It was just weird. It was like shortly after they left, they died.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, well, they're an older couple, right? So, yeah, maybe she had cancer, she did not know, or maybe she was told and she said, well, whatever, like some people, I'm just going to let it go, and I'm not going to get chemo, I'm not going to do whatever. Or, people have heart attacks every day.
Was it coincidence, or was it paranormal?
Right. Was it coincidence, or was it paranormal?
And then
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying, it's kind of weird because so you talked about that case, which is interesting because they passed, but there's been so many cases that have been reported where the kids come into the home, but then they never do anything.
Yeah.
They never attack them.
Yeah. Right.
The people just get creeped out and they end up finding a way to make them leave.
Yeah.
So it's it's like, what are they,
Yeah. And everybody has a camera on their phone.
Yeah.
So, like, if there's kids not going to, let's say tonight, this happens to either one of you. Maybe you're not going to think to grab your phone. I know I would. Maybe you both would because we're both thinking about it now, whatever. And then you would be like, okay, here they are. Got them.
Yeah.
But then again, put that on YouTube. Oh, that's fake.
Yeah.
They faked it. They got their kids. Hey, Billy and Jenny, come over here. We're going to put some black eyes and some eyelashes on you. Yeah, you're going to put a hoodie on.
I'm the first one with that. Oh, we got a cat making an appearance here.
Oh, I thought I heard her meowing.
Right.
That's one of the first things that I think about too, because I'm one of those people who's like, I really want to see good evidence, obviously, camera, photographs. But I've been pretty open in saying anything that's modern, I pretty much am not going to believe. And that's not saying that I don't trust the person, but at this point in time, I mean, you can make a sci-fi movie in your room.
Yeah.
In your den at this point in time.
On your phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's just, I don't know what kind of evidence. I think the level that you need the evidence to be at is much higher. So I'm actually more interested in going back and looking at older film and older photos. I think that's almost better evidence than what we have now, because technology's just improved so much. And it's not that I don't trust the people who put it out there, and I think it's important to keep doing that. But how do you know? I mean, at this point, we just don't.
Right.
Yeah,
you don't know. So one of the things I want to talk about with cryptids, kind of switch topics a little bit, but kind of fit in with that. In my area, I live in Wisconsin. In my area now, there is the Chicago Mothman that has been seen very recently.
Yes.
And in neighborhoods, if you have, to all my spooky friends out there, if you have Netflix, they brought back Unsolved Mysteries, not the good stuff when we were younger with Robert Stack and
it's
the fog
still pretty
coming.
good. We just
It's
don't
still
have
pretty
Robert
good.
Stack. Yeah.
Yeah, that we brought him through AI or whatever. We dug him up and then. But anyway, they just did a recent episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely fascinating to me because, as we all know, all three of us here, Chicago Mothman in West Virginia, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
The bridge went down after they saw it. What do you guys think now? There's a Mothman in Chicago, and there's a number of people stepping forward saying, I've seen it in my neighborhood, I've seen it at the airport, but nothing's happening. Like, planes aren't crashing. Fires.
We were actually really lucky to have Tobias Whalen, who was on that episode, on our podcast.
Nice.
Yes. And a lot of that's actually happening in Wisconsin. So keep an eye out for the Mothman there, John.
Yeah, because he was actually...
I will.
So if you watch that episode, he was the person that kind of centered that around. And so when we brought him on, he actually said that he's actually in Wisconsin, and not Chicago. And he's been doing a lot of research on this Mothman that's been seen. And he said he was looking up that Unsolved Mysteries is sending all of the information they're receiving from their phone calls and stuff to him. So he's been able to interview lots and lots and lots and lots of people about their sightings.
Yeah.
Interestingly, with our interview with him, he said that it seems like all of these reports on that episode of sightings at O'Hare International Airport, he isn't sure about, because there is sources saying that the air traffic controllers and stuff saw a Mothman, but they actually don't have any air traffic controllers that have come forward to say that they did. So in other words, it's like one person's saying all these sightings have happened, but no one's actually come forward to say that there actually were these sightings.
But then all of the other ones where they were actually talking to I think it was some mother and a daughter or something like that. The individual people they talked to, all of those were, legitimate sightings. Yeah.
Because I'm always really interested, and not that I don't trust other people, but I think it's always great when you have the most credible sources, when you have police officers, when you have pilots, when you have air traffic controllers, when you have soldiers, when people like this are making are making these. I guess because you just know they have something to lose, possibly by coming forward.
Absolutely.
So I was like, "Oh, air traffic controllers. I mean, wow. I mean, that's." And he's like, "Well, someone says there were air traffic controllers, but we weren't able. No one's actually been able to prove that." And so it's interesting. I also think it's interesting that I don't know, but there's definitely a lot of sightings, and he's talked to a lot of people in that region that are seeing some kind of winged creature that seems to fit that description in that area. So
why now? And what does it want?
I don't know. It's so bizarre that this experience in West Virginia, which I think happened in the 70s, right?
Yes,
and then all of a sudden now it's a whole new phenomenon, a different place.
Yeah. Right.
The Mothman, I don't know what to think about the Mothman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, I love all of it, so I want all of it to be true. I want there to be a Bigfoot. I want there to be a Mothman. We just learned about a new one the other day. It was the sheep squatch or whatever. Let's bring it on. Let's do the sheep squatch.
What's that about?
It was like a giant Bigfoot looking thing, but it has white fur and it looks more like a sheep, and it has long claws.
It has the big horns on the front.
And it comes after people, like it's chasing people down. Unlike Bigfoot, which is hiding, don't look at me. The sheep squatch is going after people.
And that's in West Virginia, Kentucky, Western Virginia. And these sightings go back. There's Navy SEALs that have reported seeing the sheep squatch.
So I'm okay. Let's bring it all on. The sheep squatch, the Bigfoot, the whatever. Okay, cool. But I don't understand what the Mothman is. I don't know what the motivations are for it. It's very
right.
It's unusual.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about this too, but I never felt like the Mothman was ever really the right name for what was being described.
No.
When you hear a lot of the descriptions of the Mothman, it almost seems more like a bat creature. But then because it's called the Mothman, a lot of the art that you find for it makes it look like a
Mothman.
But that's not really what people described at first. I don't know.
That episode of the Unsolved Mysteries, the two ladies saw something completely different that didn't look like a Mothman at all. It was it was like a weird man that was flying in the sky.
Yeah.
So it's very strange.
Yeah, it's very strange, and I have no idea. I mean, of course you're scared of it because if some big bat-like creature flies down in your... But again, like we said with that blob, it's not trying. You don't know. You don't know. What do we? Maybe it's trying to help you cook. Hey, turn over your burgers. Your burgers are burning. I don't know. I mean, I know that sounds funny, and I'm being funny, but
it's true.
It's not going. No one's ever said, "I've had my baby, and I took my baby with me, and I was sitting on the porch, and all of a sudden the Mothman came up with his giant talons, grabbed my baby, and flew off." Right?
No.
No.
Yeah.
And the
kind of like
funny
the black-eyed children. You have these cryptids, but
they're scary, but they didn't do anything bad.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
We have two cryptids here in Wisconsin. We have the Beast of Bray Road, which is very famous. I would suggest doing a story on that, just to my fellow podcast friends. It's very interesting because it's been seen forever. Number one, tracks and fur and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. But no one who has heard it, seen it, been some type of interaction, has said it has come out and ripped this whatever. It's kind of like Bigfoot. It just kind of hangs out and just kind of, right? Also, we have the Goat Man.
The cousin of the sheep squatch.
There we go. Love it. And the same thing. The only story, and this is, I don't know if this is scary. I guess it'd be scary. So, yes, there are people out there who have the great job of picking up roadkill. That is your job, to drive around and pick up roadkill, which, okay.
Somebody's got to do it.
God bless you that you're doing that. You're nothing against it. If that's a living for you and you're paying the bills.
Yeah.
God bless
Honest
you.
living.
Honestly. Well, the story goes, a gentleman was doing that. He was driving down this road where the Goat Man was. And all of a sudden, it's like, how people jump in the back of a truck and, you're like, whoa, kind of, you know what I mean? That's what happened. What he thought was the goat man jumped into the back of the truck, grabbed the deer carcass, and jumped back out. That was it. Just grabbing a snack. I'm out of here. Right. But the guy freaked out, which he should.
It was meal delivery service.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, if I was, that was my job.
I don't have to go hunting tonight. Here's the deer, right? It's coming past.
Yeah. There we go. By the way, I would like to do a ride along with one of those guys because I'm sure they have some interesting stories.
I bet they see some weird stuff if they're doing
weird
it at nighttime.
Stuff about, we're not going to get into it because we don't have enough time. Maybe if I have you guys on the podcast again, we talk about, but with aliens supposedly taking organs from cattle and all that stuff like that, right? They must see something like that. And they must, that's really weird. But again, nothing is terrible.
Yeah. Good man didn't do anything bad.
Right. There's nothing, and the coat man didn't break into the truck and rip the guy to shreds like in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. He didn't steal the driver. He took the dead deer carcass.
He was hung, right? So, I don't know. So, when I've done cryptid episodes and I see you've done like Connecticut cryptids and Mothman, animal mutations, with Chernobyl, it's interesting, right? It's just like, where did they come from? How did this happen? And you do occasionally hear like the old, the lab just happened recently. There was a lab in Florida and some guy forgot to lock the door and a bunch of monkeys got out and started running around.
I thought they should just left the monkeys alone. Just let them be free.
Right.
Yeah.
So what?
We don't have monkeys in North America. Come on.
Yeah. Let's see what happens. But what do you guys think? What is your theory of why there are cryptids out there? And again, they're not doing anything like this Michigan dog man. There's, like you said, all those Connecticut, the sheep squatch, Bigfoot, right? It's interesting.
We just had RSA Miller on our podcast on Thursday night, and it was mostly about Christmas cryptids.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I've had RSA on too. I love her.
Yeah, she's awesome. And
shout out.
A lot of it was like, I think humans just love a good monster story. And we can relate it to things that are actually dangerous to us in our lives. Like a lot of the Christmas cryptids are really like a metaphor for winter, about how dangerous winter was for us as pre-modern humans,
Yeah. The winter is the monster.
The winter is actually the monster, but then we personify it and make it into these other things. So, a lot of cryptid things probably are just stories, but I really want to believe that there also are animals that haven't been found, we don't know about, and maybe dinosaurs left over from ancient times or whatever, I think it's a combination of things probably.
Yeah.
And then we always get into the conversation about extra dimensional too.
Yep.
Which,
if they're not even really in our dimension? They're just coming in and out.
Yeah. One of the things we talk about all the time is how weird it is that UFO sightings seem to correspond with Bigfoot sightings. And so I don't know why that is, but it's always been something that's been intriguing. Is there more going on with that? Or is it a coincidence? I don't know.
Maybe Bigfoot are way easier to talk to for the aliens because they actually listen instead of like screaming and running away. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you guys have a favorite episode
of our show?
Yes.
It's hard to pick favorites because we've had so many good guests. But speaking of cryptids, since we're on that subject, we got to have Ron Moorhead on and talk about the Sierra sounds with him.
Ooh.
That was really fascinating because he is under the assumption and belief that they are extra dimensional. And he's someone who's really experienced this firsthand,
And how so?
I don't know. We'd have to read his book.
So, well, are you talking about how they're correlated or how he's familiar with them?
Yeah, how they're familiar.
So he starts going up in the Sierra Nevadas in the 1970s. And they have one of his friends had some land up in the mountains. And so they go up there camping. It's like guys in their early 20s then, or something, roughly. And they start having things where things are throwing stuff at their cabin and stuff like that while they're sleeping at night. And so he sets up a recorder And so he has all these sounds of supposed Bigfoot, like having conversations. It's really interesting because it sounds like they have like dialect and like, you know, it almost sounds like an actual language.
It sounds like a male and a female having an argument.
And so,
a husband and a wife. Yes, that'd be absolutely hilarious.
The male is definitely losing the argument. I'll tell you that.
And so
of course.
Yeah.
So I heard Ron Moorhead talk with Art Bell. And that's where I heard that for the first time. And so we were able to have him on and talk about that. But there's actually a new case where someone else is recording these sounds in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be talking to them, hopefully, I think here sometime in January. So maybe some new sounds that are coming out that seem to be similar. I'm not sure, but it's definitely interesting. But yeah, he had these things like over a decade. Like they were going up there like forever, and like he just got more and more and more.
Well, that's what I mean. There are people out there who have tapes or files or what recordings, video, audio, who are just sitting on it. And you know, people right now, and this puts a chill down my spine, and I just go, no, who are literally going in, you know, oh, this is Dad's old. He said he caught Bigfoot on tape, and you know, he has this video evidence. Give it to Goodwill or throw it away. I'm like, no. Here's the alien talking to my dad about world peace and everything. Yeah, burn it.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm like, no.
Just gets lost in a box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets lost. And you hear that all the time where people are like, well, there's a box of stuff. I'll give this to my friend as a paranormal researcher or whatever. And they'll look through it and they're like, oh my God, this is like, you know, this videotaping ghosts or whatever. It's like, it's insane.
In the real world, that's kind of what happens, right? I was talking to Jenny the other day. I think I was talking to some people. My dad was in the Navy, and he was, the ship that he was on ended up picking up pieces of the Challenger, you know, in the 1980s out of the ocean. And so there was a home movie like on a VHS cassette of like them picking up like the nose cone and stuff like that of the Challenger up out of the ocean. And I was like, man, that'd be really cool to like show my kids. And Jenny never saw it, but I have no clue where that tape is. I mean, it probably
got recorded over
with like some soap operas, and then it got thrown away, you know, like,
and
so you wonder how often,
that's a piece of history that is just gone.
Yeah, the Patterson film gets recorded over with Days of Our Lives, you know, or Jeopardy, and then off it goes.
Yeah. And it just people, before you like throw something out, you know, Dairyland Frights at gmail.com, send it to me. I got plenty of friends like Jenny and Frosty, and we'll go through it for you. Come on. Yeah, that's just scary to me. Is there an episode you guys want to do in the upcoming year that you're like really excited about? Like,
Frosty, if anybody's listening, they want to be a guest. Frosty is always looking for more people to talk about ETs and cryptids and anything UFOs.
There's a lot of things that I would like to talk about that we haven't been able to get into yet. Like, like Men in Black.
Yeah.
I would like to get into a little bit
more
an
expert on Men in Black.
Yeah.
It's not really paranormal. I would like to have someone on to talk a little bit about how the paranormal field kind of blends over with like modern stuff of what's going on with quantum physics, like spooky action at a distance, and kind of I get into the space stuff quite a bit, so kind of getting into that a little bit more. It's really just anything that's interesting and kind of, you know, mind-blowing is what I like to sit down and talk about. I imagine similar to you. I mean, the reason we got this started is I was the guy who would go to a party and I wouldn't know anybody there. And
yes.
By the end of the party, Jenny would find me like talking with a couple people, and we'd be, you know, terrestrials or Bigfoot or quantum physics, or we were just talking about weird stuff. And it's like, hey, like that's what I like doing. So, you know, that's how that kind of got started.
Absolutely. My wife doesn't take me. They don't do the work Christmas party anymore. I think I had something to do with it.
It's all your fault.
Because I got bored. I get bored easily. So I'll sit at the table, and my wife will always tell me when she gets up to go with her friends to dance or have a drink with, she'll be like, honey, be good. And that means do not talk about freaky stuff.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, so what do you guys think about like Bigfoot and aliens? And then what do you think about poltergeists like coming in and they're doing and like satanic? And people would slowly get away from the table. And then they would tell my wife the next day, your husband's really weird. And my wife would go, yes, I know. I apologize.
One of the things we talk about with that all the time, though, is what I would experience a lot of times is people will be kind of standoffish at first, maybe sit around listening to the conversation. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, this one time I lived in this house and,
everybody has
footsteps.
Everybody has a but one time.
Yeah.
It's
or
just
I
whether
saw some
they're
lights
willing
in the sky one time.
Whether they're willing to talk about it or not.
And like, I didn't know if I actually saw what I saw, but my dad was with me and he saw it too. And it's like,
that's funny because I tell this story all the time. And just really quickly go through it is so everywhere I work, everybody knows I'm the paranormal weird guy. I make no bones about it because I'm like, I'm not changing that. You ain't gonna change me. Yeah. I'm weird. I love it. I'm a nerd. Perfect.
You can be part of Team Weird then, John.
Absolutely. I'm a member. I'll give you my due check.
Yeah, your official membership card.
All right, cool. Anyway, so when I was at this one work, really, like I said, I'll shorten this version. One of my employees came up to me and she said, "John, I think I'm in trouble." And I'm thinking, "Oh God, she's pregnant." You know what I mean? And I have to tell the mom, like, "No, I'm not." And she's saying, her and her friends got a Ouija board. Went into the cemetery. Jenny, you can please comment on this if you'd like to. Went in there, started getting spirits, did not know how to deal with it, and ran off once something happened, right? Didn't close it, didn't anything. So she said that she was at her house and she saw shadows and she said, weird things are happening. I'm really uneasy now going into my house and it's never been like this. What do I do? And I'm like, well, let's go back and get your Ouija board. Okay, fine. Go back, try to get the Ouija board. And guess what? The groundskeeper had mowed over it and totally destroyed it. Gone into pieces. Okay, well, all right. So I'm like, okay. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Next thing I know, the mom comes in. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the mom's going to be like, stop telling my daughter this crap. And, I'm going to get you fired. No, she's like, John, can you help us? It's like, I'm seeing shadows. There's something weird going on. My daughter and I can't sleep. We blah, blah. Okay. So eventually I said, okay, we got to get a new Ouija board. You guys got to go out there. We got to close it and everything. But before I did that, I called one of my medium friends. And I said, could you come out and can you help us? And she said, absolutely. I don't want anyone to get hurt. You guys have made a bigger mess of this than it should be. So she came out with us, very, very nice lady. And she said, okay, so we went there, figured it all out, everything. She said, when she was there really quickly, when she met the mom and the daughter, she goes, you have a demon attached to you. Yeah, we got to get rid of that. There's a demon. We got to figure this out. And it's a bad spirit. We got it. So we went, we figured everything out. Everything worked out. But what was funny to me out of all this situation was, here's a situation that they did. They were the ultimate skeptics. They were just kids drinking beer, having a good time at a cemetery, having, just dumb. We all have done that. Yeah. Dumb kids.
What kids do.
Yeah. So Jenny, you can comment on this, really quickly. Is the moral of the story is don't fool around with spirits. Don't try to do something if you're not competent, or how would you phrase that?
I think it goes back to the intention. There's usually we've talked about this recently, actually, on one of our shows, the Ouija board. Most people, they go into it just thinking about it as a game or that it's not real or doesn't work. And there's no intention set behind it. So then you're opening.
They ask for anything.
Yeah, they ask for anything. Anybody.
What do most people do when they first time they mess with the Ouija board? Does anybody want to talk to us?
Yeah.
Correct.
Anybody in the whole universe.
Yes.
Talk to us? Yeah, that's the first thing that happens.
Yeah. So I think because there's this no intention, then anything can come through. And then sometimes the things that aren't very nice come through. And then people don't know how that you need to close it down. You have to you turned the on switch on, but then you left it on. So then everybody gets to keep coming, you know?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, what you said, Jenny, earlier, it's like having the open sign, right?
Yep.
Like, okay, we're open now.
Yeah, doors
Come on
open.
in.
Come on. We said anybody.
But everybody.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
said
everybody.
anyone,
Yeah.
everything.
Come on, everybody. Like,
Yeah.
You haven't
Okay.
put up any, getting into the other sides of it, like you haven't put any protective bubbles up, you haven't set any
Correct.
intention for, and so a lot, that's a conversation we have quite a bit about, is the Ouija board a good thing or a bad thing? I think the Ouija board is a divination tool, just like tarot, just like anything else.
mhm, mhm.
But just more people do it who aren't prepared for it and don't treat it with the respect that it probably needs to be treated.
Correct. I equate it to fire. Okay, so like fire
Yeah.
can be a good thing, right? It helps cook your meals. It helps burn your leaves.
Yeah.
It helps,
Keeps you
give you a
warm.
nice, it makes you warm, makes you have your little fire pit, and you got your s'mores. However, if you don't watch it and you don't contain it, you could burn down an entire
can be
city
one of the
or
most
whatever.
destructive things.
Correct. And you could say that about water and, just energy sources in general, like water and air and, fire, the elementals, right?
Yep.
Kind of the same thing. If you do not treat it with respect, it kind of is going to come up and bite you. That's why you're around a lot of paranormal researchers. And I don't know if you've spoken to anyone who's brought this up, but mine have many, many times, is water. When they're near a water source, let's say the building is built over it or near it, or they see an uptick in paranormal activity.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Especially with limestone too. Limestone,
Natural
water,
energy.
there's a building, probably going to get a lot of paranormal activity, which is fascinating, right? I've never thought about that. This is interesting to me. Do you guys have a bucket list? Because I like to ask before we wrap up here, a bucket list of a place you would like to go if I gave you an unlimited check.
I mean, I would like to go just about anywhere. But I think my top places, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, and I would love to go do like the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about it in the paranormal sense,
Yeah.
The UK they have so much, not that we don't have the history. Going back to the beginning of our conversation here, it's not that we don't have the history here in the United States like they do. It's that ours has been lost, but theirs is always intact. So it's like, being able to go walk through some village that the buildings are from the 1200s or something would be fascinating. And then all of that residual energy of things that have taken place in that area.
Stonehenge.
And same thing with Hawaii. Like Hawaii has a really wonderful and beautiful belief system around the spirits and spirit world, and I think that would be really cool to experience too.
Yeah. Same question.
Well, I'm going to give I've always had a connection to Scandinavia and kind of Norse mythology. So I think that would be really interesting to go, like the history side of me would like to go check that out. Focusing more on the paranormal and I guess history too. I think going to Giza and going to Egypt. I think that would probably be, if I could go one place, to be able to go to the pyramids.
I love it.
I think that would be a dream come true.
Yeah. Mine I've said many, many times, and my audience is probably sick of it, but I'll say it again because maybe there's somebody out there who would just say, all right, John, we're going to send you there, so you shut up. Transylvania. I want to go to Transylvania. Dracula Castle, check it out. Because it's lost in time, because I've done a lot of research on it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, it's just everybody forgot about it. It's just kind of, they still have cobblestone paths leading out. They the internet, yes, they do have the internet, but it's not like great.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in some middle of nowhere in the United States kind of thing.
Well,
they don't have a lot of tourism. They don't have a lot of, unless you're really like us, really into history. You really have to want to go there. You really have to want to go there.
Yeah.
It's a long flight. It's a small country. It's okay. And then I'm like, perfect. That's where I want to go. That has been trampled to death by everybody and their mother. I'm like, okay.
That was
really fascinating history too. And I think it's
Absolutely.
really interesting because, Vlad the Impaler has been, Dracula, has been like vilified
Correct.
so much. But, we had a friend when we were younger from Romania, and he talked about how he was a national hero.
Yeah.
In Romania, and
Right.
so it's like, hey, famous war general, essentially, like,
yeah.
I mean, he got the job done. You might not agree with how he did it.
Yeah.
So,
Shish kebabbing everybody, but
Yeah.
okay. But it worked.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up here, what do you guys got coming here for the end of the year, new year? What are you guys looking forward to share with my spooky friends?
Well, we have the Christmas season coming up, so we have some guests. I think the first show every year we do a New Year's prediction show. So on January 2nd, Thursday night, what we do is we're going to go over all the predictions that we had guests and Team Weird and stuff made from last year about 2024.
I love it.
And then we'll have new guests on. We have a whole lot of different people on that night. Usually we only have one guest. We kind of bring friends of the program on to make their predictions for 2025. And then next January, we'll go over those and see who hit some predictions right, and kind of how all that worked out. So we have that coming up.
I love that.
And
I love that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine.
Oh, okay. And Jenny, do you do any private readings?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, and how could we get a hold of you on that one?
mediumjennylee.com, which is an A, not an E, is where you can find everything. All my social media links are on there. Still, I also stream on Twitch. Friday night usually is my big night for doing readings. And then I offer private readings, and I do classes, and I teach other people how to do what I do as well.
I love it. Just to let you guys know, for the new year, I'm going to try this again. I had, like, similar to you guys, I had like a round table. I had a round table of mediums. I had a round table of paranormal investigators.
Cool.
I'm going to do that with podcasters and everything. Be on the lookout for that. If you guys want to do something similar where we would pick a topic, one of the topics I want to do is, and I know this has been done quite a bit, but I kind of think it's coming back, is the satanic panic.
Yeah.
I think kind of people are I'm not saying to the nth degree in the 80s and 90s, but it's kind of like coming back. Where people are like getting strange about things. And I'm like, whoa. People went to jail. People lost their lives because somebody made up all this crap.
Yeah.
And brought it forward.
West Memphis 3 is the biggest example of that.
West Memphis 3, Remembering Michelle, which was all crap bullshit from, and I'm sorry if I get a little too with it, but it's just no one should have went to people. This is the 20th century, 21st century.
It's like modern witchcraft trial.
Yeah, are you crazy?
Yeah.
And the witchcraft trials were trade from teenagers who basically bore and said, Mary's a witch. And and there were other things associated with it.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to have a discussion about that maybe in the new year, kind of bring it up, see what you guys think.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And then all the musical artists who were attacked in the 80s, because that pretty much anybody like kind of in the hard rock heavy metal scene was put on, had a court trial over that at some point in time. Ozzy, Rob Halford, all those people had court cases over.
Yeah, Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. All this crazy stuff. Like, what are we doing? Like, everyone stop and just take a breath and let's relax.
No, I would agree. I think there has been an uptick in that specifically.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah. So thank you guys for going overtime with me. I really appreciate it and everything. You guys are great. Again, I will put all the links to Jenny's site as well as the podcast, The Witching Hour, so you guys can go check it out. And if you are looking to be a guest, please reach out to them. I tell all my podcast friends, I definitely share guests. So, if you're like, hey, John, you had so-and-so on, could you introduce me? Glad to do it. Because the better that person gets out there and you guys get a different viewpoint, awesome. Yeah, so thank you again. Really appreciate it. This was a ton of fun. And like I always tell my spooky friends, stay spooky.
Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.